If you've been scrolling through endless specs, watching benchmark videos, and still feel like you might end up with a card that looks great on paper but doesn't really fit your actual setup, this review should clear that up. You're probably standing in front of a wall of graphics cards on Amazon, trying to decide whether the flash white beast from ASUS is just a pretty face or actually the right tool for the job you have in mind. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Let's start with the feeling that brings most people to the high-end GPU aisle, the fear of buying something that either overkills your monitor or, worse, underdelivers because it can't handle the heat, power, or space constraints of your rig. The RTX 4090 series is the flagship of NVIDIA's Ada Lovelace generation, and the ASUS ROG Strix OC edition pushes that flagship a little further with a factory overclock and a custom cooling solution. What you need to know is not just how many teraflops it can throw at a game, but whether those teraflops translate into a smoother experience in the real world, and whether your case, power supply, and budget can accommodate that extra muscle. First, who should actually consider dropping this card into their build? If you spend most of your gaming time at 4K resolution, love turning on ray tracing, and want to keep frame rates above 60 frames per second while you stream, the RTX 4090 is the only card that comfortably sits in that sweet spot. It's also the logical choice for creators who regularly edit 8K video, run complex 3D simulations, or train machine learning models locally. The 24 GB of GDDR6X memory means you won't start hitting VRAM ceilings when you open a massive Photoshop file or load a detailed Unreal Engine scene. In short, if your workflow already demands the absolute top tier of GPU horsepower, the ROG Strix 4090 gives you that extra headroom without you having to think about, will this still be fast enough next year? Now, who should walk away? If your monitor tops out at 1440p, or you're happy playing most titles at 1080p with a solid 60 frames per second, you'll see diminishing returns. The performance delta between a well-tuned RTX 3080 Ti and a 4090 in that scenario is often a handful of frames per second, not the kind of gain that justifies a several $1,000 price tag. Also, the card is physically massive. Its triple-fan Axial-tech cooler stretches well over the length of a typical mid-tower case, and the backplate adds extra weight. If you're building a compact or minimalist rig, you'll likely run into clearance issues, especially with the 2.7-inch thick PCB. Finally, power consumption is a real concern. The card can draw upwards of 450W under load, meaning you need a quality 850W or higher PSU, plus enough headroom for the rest of your components. If you're on a tighter budget, or you're not ready to upgrade your power supply, the financial and logistical overhead can outweigh the performance upside. Let's talk about the practical strengths that matter after you've plugged the card in. ASUS has equipped this model with a set of Axial-tech fans that are larger than the stock blower on NVIDIA's reference design. According to the spec sheet, they're scaled up for about 23% more airflow, and in my own testing that translated to noticeably lower temperatures during marathon gaming sessions. I ran Cyberpunk 2077 at native 4K with ultra settings, ray tracing on, and DLSS set to performance. The GPU stayed in the low 80s Celsius range even after an hour of continuous play, and the fans never ramped up to a screaming 70 dB. That kind of acoustic stability is a huge plus if you share a room or stream with a microphone nearby. The factory overclock, the OC mode, adds roughly 100 MHz across the core clock band. In real-world terms, that usually means an extra 24 frames per second in the most demanding titles, which isn't a game-changing number but does give a little breathing room when you're pushing frame rate caps or trying to stay above the 30 frames per second threshold in VR. More importantly, the overclock is already validated by ASUS, so you don't have to spend time tweaking voltage curves or worrying about stability. Just install the drivers, fire up your game, and you're good to go. Another practical consideration is